You're watching News.Markets. From left-winger Jeremy Corbyn's Labour leadership campaign donations to a tongue-in-cheek appeal to bail out Greece, crowdfunding seems the favourite way for enterprising go-getters to raise funds. And as everyday investors become more sophisticated, joining professionals, venture capitalists and institutions, the worlds of alternative and traditional finance are colliding. Well, to talk about how equity crowdfunding has become a mainstream funding option, I'm joined by Luke Lang, co-founder of Crowdcube, who pioneered equity crowdfunding in the UK and the world, and is the biggest investment crowdfunding platform in the UK. Thanks for coming in. Now, look, when we first spoke in 2011, you just started out. Now you've raised £97 million.
Almost £100 million, and we funded nearly 300 businesses.
So it's not just for startups?
Absolutely, it's not. So startups actually equates for a relatively small amount of the types of businesses that we fund, around 25%. But the vast majority is kind of early stage and growth businesses. So we're really starting to see a shift towards more established, well-known businesses and brands starting to use crowdfunding. Companies like Camden Town Brewery that raised over £2 million, Just Park, which raised £3.7 million, and more recently Subaru, which is a mouldable glue which is taking the DIY world by storm, raised £3.5 million on the site recently.
So larger companies are using crowdfunding as part of their funding arsenal, really?
And they're more established businesses as well. So these companies have often got VC backing. So Just Park, who I talked about earlier, Index Ventures, one of Europe's leading VC firms, venture capital firms, had already invested and participated in the round. BMW iVentures had already invested in the company. So you're starting to see a trend towards a blurring of the lines between what is friends and family funding, angel investment, crowdfunding, and VC investment. I think that kind of continuum is flexing and moving all of the time.
So investors are changing too?
Absolutely, yeah. So I mean, the average investment amount is now around about £2,000. The single largest investment amount was £1 million, which was invested just a few weeks ago into Subaru, that mouldable glue for DIY enthusiasts. And what was really interesting about that was that £1 million was invested via the phone. So they did it via their iPhone. They had an iPhone 6 and they did it at 5 minutes past midnight in the evening. So that gives you a real strong indication of how we've shaken up this market and how we've transformed investing in the UK.
It sounds like it's funky, it sounds like it's new, but what about returns? And what about exit strategy? Because that's one of those misconceptions, isn't it, about crowdfunding, that you can't get out?
Yes, absolutely. So I think it's important that we make it clear that these are long-term investments. Typically when you're investing and getting an equity stake in a business, it's going to be 2, 3, 4, 5 years before you get a return on your investment. But recently, e-Car Club, which raised money back in 2013, has just exited. So it's just been sold, just been snapped up by Europcar.
That's a big name.
Yeah, exactly. So that gave those investors that invested and backed the business back in 2013 around about 3 or 4 times return on their investment. And we've also got mini bonds as well, so we allow business or people to lend money directly to more established businesses like River Cottage or Eden Project, and they're actually starting to pay out their interest repayments over the course of the bond. So
it could be quite a shrewd investment. But let's talk about how you're shaking up the stock market, because I know Numis have invested £6 million in Crowdcube. Yeah. What kind of conversations are happening? I'm interested to look at the future.
Yeah, so I mean, we've been incredibly passionate about enabling more businesses, not just start-up but early stage and growth businesses, to raise the capital they need to create jobs and create exits and returns for investors. And we've been talking to Numis for a number of months about working with them. And it came to a point where it was clear that our futures were converging, not diverging, and the opportunity for them to invest in us as a business kind of came about. And we really want to look at kind of IPOs, initial public offerings, and really start to put the public back into that. For too long now, we feel that IPOs and those big market cap fundraisers are restricted to the elite institutions. And we want to change that and give retail investors the opportunity to back those the brightest businesses in Britain.
So while they're backing those, though, do you think there might be a shift and a change in the way the stock market works? Could we see maybe a secondary market coming up?
Absolutely. I mean, there's already been discussions around potential secondary markets. There are some that are out there at the moment, like Asset Match, a company that actually raised funding on Crowdcube a few years ago. So people are already starting to do this, and it's certainly something that we're keeping a close eye on, because we recognise that the longevity, the long-term survival of our industry hinges on delivering investors' returns.
So the way the stock market is working is transforming before our very eyes. Luke Lang,
Absolutely.
we could talk about this for days.
Could.
It's been an absolute pleasure for the update, though.
Thank
Luke
you very
Lang,
much.
the co-founder of Crowdcube.
Thank you.